first and foremost, I want to thank all of our panelists and everybody here for tuning in. My name is Alexandra Nyman, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Soberocity. We are so much more than a blog. We provide sober events and an opportunity for members to interact with each other in our Soberocity Facebook group. We also have a brand new Patreon page, which can be found at patreon.com/soberocity. By becoming a member, you can support panel discussions like the one we are hosting tonight. Soberocity aims to change the perception of what it means to live a sober life and make it attainable to all. For us, sobriety is a spectrum, and we fully embrace all looking to join our community. For together, we are infinitely strong. Tonight, we will be discussing the importance of treating mental health with the same level of respect and dignity as physical health, in honor of May being National Mental Health Awareness Month. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our host tonight, Rachel Brady. Rachel Brady, also known as Shots to Shakes on Instagram, is a woman who recovers out loud, a mental health advocate, and a storyteller enthusiast. She describes herself as a former LA party girl who found sobriety in her 20s and seeks to build a connection through writing, touching on topics like sobriety, perfectionism, people pleasing, and the occasional touch of tough love. She is passionate about uplifting people in recovery, people who are coming to terms with their healing, and everyone in between. She currently lives in North Carolina with her husband and rescue puppy, taking it one day and coffee at a time.
Hi there, guys. Thank you so much for having me. I am so honored to be spending a Friday night doing having such great conversations about things that are very near and dear to all of our hearts. So thank you so much for having me and for all these amazing panelists. Really quickly, I am just going to introduce everyone sort of list style, and then we'll get started with an introductory question. So first we have musician, TEDx speaker, and mental health advocate Ariel Bloomer, as well as musician and sober advocate Shawn Jump. Both are part of Icon for Hire, so welcome, guys. We also have life coach and natural health practitioner, Dr. Elise Ho. We have author, TEDx speaker, certified addictions and mental health counselor, and the founder of Recovery is the New Black, Michelle Smith. And finally, we have founder and clinical director of Therapy for Women, Amanda White, LPC. So thank you guys so much for being here. And for the first question, I just would love a little bit of introduction to your relationship with this topic, mental health and sobriety. So the first question I have is, what is your relationship with sobriety and mental health, and how did that begin for you? So we can do it kind of just all look at my panel and see who is first, and that is Dr. Elise Ho, if you would like to give that away.
Sure. Hi, thank you. For me, it started at a pretty young age, just kind of noticing things as far as mental health, noticing how different aspects of life and different decisions we make affect how we behave and then how others perceive us. As I got older and had different experiences, it also was further pushed along by frustration, honestly. Frustration at when somebody comes and says, I need help, or shows that they need help in some way and are not treated with open arms and respect. I think it's a hard thing to do, to come and say, I need help, and that should be embraced and the help should be offered.
Absolutely. And yes, you are completely right in terms of everyone deserving that embrace and open-mindedness. Thank you. How about you, Michelle?
I grew up with it. My father was an alcoholic and my mother had severe trauma and OCD and major depressive disorder. So it was kind of in my upbringing. And so I saw some of the destruction that it caused, especially the secrets of silence. I was a secret keeper. And so, as I got older, I started working for the Department of Corrections, and I spent 20 years working in there building alcohol and drug programs and mental health programs. And I saw the need, and I saw that rehabilitation is such a huge piece of 90% of the population of incarceration get out. And so the importance of integrating these skills and tools and education into the community is so important. And so once I left there, it's advocating in social services and on social media and really just getting the word out, because if we destigmatize and we talk about awareness and prevention, we can make it a lot easier for not only people like me who fall into the co-occurring diagnosis population of people, but that they don't have to be shamed in order to get the help, right? So that awareness is such a big piece of me advocating as well in solidarity. Like, I am a person that's in a professional field, but I also am somebody just like them. So that's my relationship with it.
I love that. And yeah, you're completely right in terms of, kind of being a voice and also helping others be participants actively in that. Thank you. How about you, Amanda?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I grew up with mental health issues. I grew up feeling different than other people and kind of being told that I was too emotional and too much a lot of the time. And that's eventually what led me to, drinking and other things that absolutely made my mental health worse. And then I went on to become a therapist after I started to get into recovery. And I really saw the way that even in like grad school, how people with addiction and mental health issues, but specifically addiction, were treated and talked about and really dehumanized in a lot of ways. And that made me really passionate about wanting to work in that field. And I felt, obviously, because I was in recovery, I felt very connected to those people. And I felt very like those people and myself were misunderstood. And if I could be someone who, a lot of times when you're in grad school as an intern, you don't really get an opportunity to do a lot of work. But because I had that personal experience, I was able to connect with a lot of the patients and do that work. And I went on to work in an addiction rehab facility for a number of years before I started my own practice. And now I really specialize in the clinical overlap of mental health and addiction and eating disorders also.
Yeah, that part about, people with addictions being dehumanized, I think a lot of us can attest to that, and whether we experience it firsthand or see other people and how people talk about it. That's really important work. Thank you. How about you, Ariel and Shawn?
I can speak into like all of you guys. I also suffered with mental health stuff growing up, and it wasn't talked about. And I feel like the only place I could find anyone talking about it, honestly, was in music. So kind of when, as a emo 13-year-old in all of my pain, I stumbled onto like rock music, and I was like, oh my God, they are acknowledging all the things that the rest of us are suppressing, the things that I'm feeling in a very real way that I don't know how the rest of humanity is doing a good job covering up. So I was like, am I unique? Am I special? Am I the only one? No, not at all. And then that's even something new to face. Okay, are we all feeling this? And it seems like a lot of us are. And COVID makes me scared that more and more of us are talking about mental health. And it makes me freaked out that maybe we're all struggling with this. And then I don't really know what to do with that. But that's what got me into music, was wanting to give back and give voice to all the craziness inside my head. And then as I started putting it into songs and having other people resonate with it, again, it was confirmed how ununique my story is, how ununique my seemingly unique challenges are. And so now this is my lifestyle, is just creating a community of other people like me. And there's a lot of us, right? And constantly trying to give new language around mental health struggles, constantly trying to approach it in a way that is honoring the issues, being really real, really vulnerable, not sugarcoating it, and also doing it in a way that's productive. And I think sometimes we get lost and we don't know where that is. And so I'm always getting it wrong and trying again to artfully and usefully talk about mental health.
Yeah. My name's Shawn. I'll start right there. I'm definitely an alcoholic and addict. I was born one. From the time I took my first drink at 14, I went, this is awesome. And I threw up, so I've been able to navigate that through, on and off. I've got almost 6 years of sobriety underneath my belt, and we've been able to be more open about that. The older I get, and the more I'm plugged into the community. I did the whole treatment thing. I saw my dad. My brother's homeless still to this day and on meth, and I've been around and I've seen it my whole life. So With the way she writes her lyrics, I always accuse her, like, stop writing songs about me, because a lot of those, she's not, but I always say that, but I'm definitely plugged into my community. I'm definitely about all of it, not going anywhere ever.
I love that. Thank you guys so much. And congrats on 6 years. That is
Thank you.
huge.
Mhm.
And you're totally right in terms of the music and just finding a creative outlet. That is so important, especially I'm sure you're touching a lot of listeners. For the next question for all of you, it goes, I'm very prepared. It goes, while sobriety can have physical benefits, we also know that it has the potential to go beyond just abstaining. Can you describe a benefit that you noticed when it came to how sobriety affected your mental health? So Dr. Ho, if you'd like to go with that.
For myself, if I think about to the days where I was taking a little bit more than I should have, you're almost like outside of your body, like watching yourself do something. And with that, it's a complete lack of control over yourself. So, when you abstain, when you are not in that like altered state, you're able to make clearer decisions, better decisions for you. And then, of course, that has fallout as around you as far as what else occurs near you.
Yeah, definitely. How about you, Michelle?
I would say my drinking was very secretive, and my secrets kept me sick. I was a total binge closet drunk. I drank simply to black out. 3 bottles in 40 minutes, and I was in the hospital. It was that quick. And so for me, once I abstained from drinking and finally surrendered, even after running from treatment and, sneaking out the windows and doing all that, because I was, not ready. I'm going to beat this. I'm going to moderate, because I'm the one who's going to learn to moderate. And beat the system. I finally surrendered. And the things that I really got was, wow, I'm actually like able to look in a mirror again and kind of like myself. And wow, now I kind of love myself. And that confidence and that momentum that comes with every single 24 hours. And now I can share a cup with my kids and they don't have to say mommy's drink and mommy's juice. And the empowerment that just comes with that living an honest, truth-telling life, and I have no secrets, is like the most freeing, euphoric high I have ever received. So just the depression and isolation is lifted. It's gone by me being honest and removing one thing from my life, and it has left endless possibilities of things I can do. With that, I'm living an amazing, emotionally, spiritually fulfilled life. And that's to sobriety and ongoing recovery.
Absolutely. And yeah, the whole secrets keeping you sick thing. Oof. Yes. That's all I'll say about that. How about you, Amanda?
Yeah, I mean, I echo what everyone said. I think what I can add is I struggled with anxiety really, really bad. I still have anxiety. And I think just about how much drinking compounded my anxiety and how much, not just like that physical symptoms of anxiety that drinking makes worse, but then the anxiety about what did I do? What did I say? Having to clean things up the next day. I was like incapable of taking feedback when I was like in my addiction. I was incapable of having an honest conversation with someone. Everything was defensive because I had such low self-esteem. People couldn't have conversations with me. So it's just like it snowballs from there because I started drinking because it was the solution, it felt like in the beginning, to my mental health issues. But then it starts causing other problems. You put yourself in more, risky situations. You're more likely to end up with trauma. It exacerbated my own eating disorder for sure. It destroys friendships. It hurts your relationships with your family. And then all of that stuff also negatively impacts your mental health. But the great thing is when you stop doing that, you can stop the damage and stop digging. You can start to get out of that. And then as you restore relationships and restore other things in your life, that positively all will impact your mental health too.
Yeah, that is such a great way of explaining it, especially the whole anxiety thing. I think a lot of us can attest to what they call the hangxiety, where you're constantly in damage control mode. So I think that's a very key connection between mental health and sobriety. So thanks for bringing that up. How about you, Ariel and Shawn?
So I'm not, I don't identify as an alcoholic, so I'm not sober. So I guess I won't speak much into this, but only to say
I'm definitely an alcoholic.
he's an alcoholic.
100.
Whenever I take a drink, whenever I drink for the night or whatever, I know that I'm pausing my life. And oftentimes it's to get a break from something. And often that can add up. If we're taking breaks from our life, because Amanda, similar to what you were saying, these are these temporary fixes that cause these long-term problems. And I see the point of sobriety about staying present in your life, but I'll let you speak into that, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. The lying, the hiding, the denying, the justifying, the rationalize. I am a master manipulator. I will get what I want when I want, and I'm only as strong as my secrets. Like really, there was times where I was, she was finding liquor in the bathroom, and I was like, I don't know how I got there. It just the freedom that I have now to be honest with myself. No one really ever taught me how to really be truly honest with myself. And they didn't tell me what was going to happen if I get bored or if I'm lonely or if I'm getting stuck in my head. I wish they would teach me this stuff, even with my mom, I went back, I'm like, why didn't you ever teach me like if I'm in my head too long, or am I lonely, or am I like watching too much Netflix, that I'm probably going to do some crazy stuff like, drink every night and then lie about it and then steal the food grocery money to go get more alcohol, and just get whatever I want. So yeah, your secrets definitely keep you sick. And, again, like no one ever taught me like about resentments. Like, I'm really glad we're talking about this stuff now. And I'm really glad that we're open about this now. And it's like become like this thing, because I literally at my shows, I have fans coming up to me and I'm like, talking about resentments and talking about lying and hiding. And they're like, I don't know why I'm acting this way. I'm like, well, you're probably one of us, and I've helped a lot of people, and I'm just really honored that I can do this. And I can do this. I've got an amazing community around me.
Yeah, and no, you're totally right in terms of, we kind of had to teach ourselves how to deal with boredom and loneliness. And I feel like these are very universal tools, like not just people that are sober that can benefit from learning that. And that actually really ties into my next question well. So thanks for that, Shawn.
Yeah.
And that is a common metaphor for developing coping skills, is creating sort of a recovery toolbox. And this can both be helpful for both mental health, even if you are not identified as sober, and sobriety. So for the panel, can you share some of your favorite tools with us that you've managed to pick up, whether it is for mental health or sobriety or both, how they overlap? So Dr. Ho, would you like to share with us?
Sure. Well, like Ariel, I also, I don't identify as an alcoholic. So therefore also not so sober. My toolbox is more about mental health and sharing my toolbox for people who can help, it can help in other ways. So mindfulness is like one of the biggest things, like just really being in the moment and knowing what's going on and seeing it, feeling it, and being able to express it. So therefore, the second tool being learning how to express all of those emotions in an appropriate way and then dealing with them. And that's the trick, right? Getting to the appropriateness. Before you pass the question, I do also just want to say amazing stories. I mean, it's just so fantastic to hear people being so open. And I think I'm a bit older than all of you. I'm not the generation that grew up with these type of talks, where we get to meet online and have that. And I just think that's huge. So thank you. So I went over.
Oh, don't even worry about it. This is not structure. You're totally fine. And no, completely. Yeah. Just learning how both, like you were saying, mindfulness and finding a healthier way to channel that is so important, both for mental health and whether or not you're in recovery. So thank you for that. Michelle, how about you?
I'll throw a different, maybe unique approach. So this right here.
Yeah.
I used to think like a mental toolbox. Like I literally have still a toolbox with essential oils and gum and water and all the things in my car, so I don't go to the liquor store. But my phone, if you think about it, everybody has their phone with them all the time. I have access to podcasts, my Audibles, my sponsors, my therapist's phone number, everything that we need, all our Facebook groups, everything and all of our resources are at our fingertips with our phone. So I always remember that if I need a refusal skill, if I need a ride home, if I need to shout out to my community for support, it's all right there. And I think it's really a great resource to shout out. And a lot of my clients have been really successful in, those apps that we have these days. Set your timer for 15 minutes and do that mindfulness. And it's saved me more than a few times. So that would be my tip.
Absolutely. And there's really something to be said about kind of having a like almost discreet way of dealing with it. So you're not you're not like, guys, I'm triggered, help me. You know what I mean? No, totally, especially obviously, during the pandemic, that was a lifesaver literally for a lot of people. Amanda, how about you?
Exercise and movement is a really, really big thing for me. As someone with anxiety, I get caught in my head pretty easily. And there's something for me just about whether it's going for a walk, whether it's stretching, whether it's, spinning or doing something more physical, just taking a break and doing that does so much for my mental health. Just like there's something I think so awesome about I can get out of my head if I'm like in my body, even if it's only for a little bit of time. So that's my tool.
Absolutely. I love that. And yeah, like movement can be so underrated, I feel, because people are like, well, it doesn't really, quote, fix anything. But honestly, if it gets you out of your own head, like there have been so many times where like in my early sobriety, I would literally go to the gym on a Friday night because I was like, they don't sell drinks there. So it should be fine.
Well, yeah. And like for me as a therapist, my life is very verbal, right? Like I'm talking, I'm listening, I'm like writing things on Instagram or whatever. It just feels very, very verbal. And for me, there's something really powerful about, and they've done studies on this, is like processing emotions and processing things can happen like through your body, through movement. And sometimes it's easier to be able to do that because we can struggle to identify exactly what's wrong or why. And sometimes our emotions don't make sense and we don't always need to figure them out. Sometimes we need to just get through it.
Yeah. And that ties in really well to, Ariel and Shawn with music, you don't have to necessarily sing exactly what you're going through, but just, I feel like music is just such a way to convey emotion that you really can't put into normal day dialogue. So yeah, for both you, Ariel and Shawn, what is a recovery or mental health, whatever you want to call it, tool that both of you like to use?
For from my recovery, usually my life is about me, and self-will, self-righteous, all the above. So if I'm waking up every morning, the first thing I'm thinking about is how much I can shove into the today, how much can I get done? There's a good chance that I'm going down the wrong scale in my recovery. So for me, I have to because I'm a workaholic as well. I struggle with that. But if I have people reaching out to me for help, and walking them through steps and doing that type of work, I freaking thrive. So I have to be helping other people. I have to be doing service work. I have to be going and being around community of like-minded people that are on the same vision of trying to have some progress with our spirituality and our growth through life. So and that's with our fan base too. Like it's been 14 years now that I've woken up every day to try to figure out how to add value to our fan base. And that's the driving factor of my entire life and my spirit and my mind. And when I'm not getting that, and when I'm not getting what I want, I usually tend to want to drink. So because it's like I have to be in the now. I can't remember who said being in the now. No one ever taught me how to not think about my past and not how to future trip over the future. You know what I mean? So being in the now is so important to me because I don't have the luxury. I lost that luxury a long time ago to be thinking about, building out business plans and thinking about all the details, because I'll start freaking out and I know exactly where to go to calm myself down like that. For less than $5, I always say for less than $5, I can literally ruin everything in my life and lose it all. And I almost did one time. So for me, it's helping other people, listening to other people, picking up the phone when people call me, and trying to do the same, because through the pandemic, there was a while that my phone felt like a 50-pound boulder that I could not pick up and make that call. And finally, I've canceled all my subscriptions and
to your streaming platforms.
To all my streaming platforms. I got the hell out of my house, which in turn got me out of my head once the rooms opened back up. And service work and just helping other people, especially early in recovery. When people are coming out of like some really bad stuff, it just reminds me that I can be there, and I was there. And it just gets me into a place in the now of just helping people. And that just, it just fulfills my life so much to help other people.
Yeah, mine
Yeah.
is different. I'm all about, I go back and forth. So 1 month I'm really into this thing, 1 month I'm really into this thing, but right now it's all about self-compassion and about comforting the feeling. So Amanda, you were talking about it's hard to identify what it is. I totally get that. The only way I can usually identify it is to try to find it in my body, which took me years to do because I was so logical. And my therapist would be like, "Where is it in your body?" And I'd be like, "I don't fucking know. I'm just mad, you know." But now I can feel it here. I can feel it here. And so getting some space from it is really great. It ties into mindfulness. And then just comforting it and really having so much empathy and talk, like inner child work. The way I see it is just like talking to my 4-year-old self and giving that inflamed part of me love, the part that is scared or feels unvalidated, feels unheard. It doesn't have to do anything with like childhood trauma. Maybe it does, but I'm just pretending I'm the sweetest, kindest, littlest version of myself and being my adult self and giving her love. And then she just chills out. And that takes like 3 minutes. She calms down. So anytime I feel like this, if I can go in my room for a second and just comfort and love and give that feeling some attention, then it chills out. It kind of releases on its own. And that's how I get rid of, like you were talking about, resentments, is I just have to like work through them every time they come up and just comfort. And so sometimes I'll do that, a couple times a week.
I love that. And both of your answers are really interesting because for Shawn, it's very like reach out, find other people to help. And then for Ariel, it's like go within, notice that. So I think that's just one thing to really attest to how, when it comes to approaching recovery or mindfulness or just any sort of emotional, I don't want to say crisis, but just emotional distress, I guess, is that there are more than one ways to manage it. And that, you might hear an answer for anyone listening saying like, oh, well, that doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't have to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So thank you for that, both of you. So for the next one, I kind of want to focus more on the mental health side of it. So my question is, so for both mental health management and sobriety, a core practice is challenging current belief systems or belief systems that might not serve you anymore. So were there any misconceptions that you had about either mental health or sobriety? You can choose. And how did you work through that? So Dr. Ho, would you like to answer?
Sure. Belief systems. I'll get that one. Growing up, it wasn't a subject that was really discussed very often. I saw certain things around me that seemed a little bit off, but I noticed like nobody was really talking. And with that, it gave me a belief that having any kind of issue that wasn't like in a perfect line was wrong. It made you less than, which is completely wrong. It doesn't make you less than. It just gives you something that you're working through. That's it. So for me, it was really that. And it brought me down the road, of course, where, like I really want to help people, but it also brought me to look within and what feels out of alignment for myself. And that was really huge and gave me a much better childhood instead of trying to like fight what was around me.
I love that. And yeah, that, kind of noticing things that might not necessarily align with you, but kind of feeling that pressure to not talk about it. I think that's really important to acknowledge and name very early on in life. Michelle, what about you?
I'll hit the substance abuse. One of my core beliefs, what I believe to be true growing up is what I saw being raised in a Catholic household where, the wine just flowed. I saw it used as a tool to help my father relax, help my father sleep. And so as I hit 30 and thought that I had passed a generational curse of my predisposition to alcoholism, I let my guard down. Welcome, mommy wine culture. Your husband, gets deployed to Iraq, your parents die, all the things life throws at you. And I took that social drink and it served a completely different purpose than it ever had before. And, it really didn't, it's not to blame for me starting to fumble and, fall into alcohol use disorder, which became a dependency really quick. But it was really an opportunity for my predisposition to flourish. And so, talking about my core beliefs of I believed that to be true until I asked myself, Michelle, do you really sleep better? No, I piss the bed, I throw up, I, don't get any REM sleep, right? Do you feel less anxious when you wake up? No, I feel more anxious. I'm scrolling through my phone, I'm doing all these things. So I had to go through and ask myself, is your relationship with alcohol problematic? Is this, giving you more than it's taking? And really just like challenging those beliefs that were ingrained in me, that I really truly believed I was a better dancer when I was under the influence. No, Michelle, you don't dance any different. You just don't care how you dance anymore, right? It's just like this whole state of mind. And so, for me, I had to challenge those core beliefs that I really authentically thought and believed to be true, because everybody could tell me that my life is going to be better without it. Michelle, you are a person who cannot drink normally. I had to experience that and fail forward until I believed that to be true for myself.
Yes. And that is, oh my gosh, those reframing questions that you were talking about, like it is so, because I, very similar upbringing as you. And it was so one of those things that you just don't question it, or you don't feel like you have the freedom to question it, I guess is a better way to put it. So thank you for sharing that. Amanda, what about you?
So I'll also do like the sobriety, substance use side. I had a very, very strong preconceived notion that being sober would mean being boring, and that being sober would mean that I would have no friends and I would be a loser. And I got sober when I was 23. So I was fairly young when I got sober, and I was like kind of at the peak of, post-grad college. People were, it's very much in your, early 20s, a lot of drinking, and the idea that I would have to give this up. When I told my parents I was an alcoholic, they were very worried for me. They were like, are you sure? I don't think you're overreacting. Like, how are you going to get married? How are you going to have a husband? How are you going to have friends? I started hanging out with other sober people, and they were like, you're going to harm your future and all of this stuff. So that was really ingrained. And one of the things it's so funny to me, because similar to Michelle, I had no friends when I drank. Like, I destroyed all of my relationships throughout college from drinking. No one wanted to be around me because I was really mean and like erratic, and would like fall asleep and do like, really ridiculous things. And then they couldn't approach me about it the next day because I would deny everything. So I had to like really check myself and explore this with a therapist of like, what does alcohol actually really mean? What was I actually giving up? Because I didn't have friends when I was drinking. And now, and even early, I had so many more real, authentic relationships with people once I got sober, because I didn't know who I was before that. I didn't have any sense of self. I didn't have good relationships with, dating when I was drinking, where, then I was able to find myself and date people. And yes, there were challenges with being sober and dating, but I'm married now. I have a business, all of these things that my family and I thought wouldn't be possible happened more than that because of being sober. And one of the things that's why I'm so grateful for places like this, for social media. Like, when I was first getting sober, Instagram kind of existed, but people weren't open about being sober. I would Google like celebrities that are sober, and I would like hold on to that list. And I kept a list of like different celebrities that were sober who I like thought were, not uncool, in my wallet for like the first year. So I think just challenging that notion. And I think it's so cool with social media and the internet and stuff like this, how other people are able to hopefully realize it earlier than I was.
Oh my gosh, the celebrity thing. I think more people than we realize do that, or like benefits of not drinking when you're severely hungover. And it's so funny. You said something about how when you were drinking, you weren't even that good of a friend. And it's so ironic how so many of us hold this notion that, oh, like I can only be social or be seen as this really cool person when I'm drinking. And then for some of us, it becomes our greatest isolator. At least that was for me too. Like I drank alcohol at first to connect, and then ironically, it ended up just taking
You end up
everything from
right.
me.
Like I was like drinking alone by myself at the end of it. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't,
Yep.
no one was
Yeah.
hanging out with me.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my
Exactly.
gosh. Yeah. How about you, Shawn and Ariel?
My misconception is I play music. Like all my heroes are like Motley Crue, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to do lines of cocaine and drink out of, Jack Daniels.
And
Do you realize?
free.
Yeah, it's all free. Do you realize that most of those Jack Daniels on stage is tea? It's tea. I didn't realize this until later in life. They were not drinking Jack, they're drinking tea. But that was one of my biggest misconceptions. And with the alcohol, I didn't realize I had a mental health problem until I started working a program and removed the alcohol. And then I realized, oh, I have a thinking problem. And I've always had this thinking problem. It's been there since I was a little boy. It was a reflection of my upbringing and the people that I saw. It was just me doing what I saw these adults doing. But it wasn't until I got into a mental health program that I was saying, oh, wait a minute, I can get into the now and I can reprogram myself. And I can do that with other like-minded people. And I can, redevelop the neurological pathways and do what I want to do and become the person that I'm meant to be and who I want to become. So that was my biggest misconception. And the biggest misconception on mental health is like, I'm 37. So like going through my 20s, it was not a big thing. Like, especially maybe
You were fine. I was crying all the time and you were fine.
Well, I was fine because I was a workaholic. I was being distracted. I didn't have to think. I was just working all the time. So like when I was from 14 to 21, yeah, I was freaking anything I could put into my body to make me not feel out of place. Cause there wasn't too many, I don't think I've ever drank and not got drunk. And I don't think I've ever just stopped. But then when I was 21, something happened where I stopped until I was 30. And then it came back like crazy. It's a progressive disease, and it just took off in a matter of 8 months and about lost everything. But that was my biggest misconception about mental health. It was like, no one talked about it. And now I'm like, I will talk about it all day long and tell people we just need to breathe deep and we can change everything we've been thinking and been taught. We just have to meditate, acupuncture. I'm going to go do the sensory deprivation tank. Can't wait because I just feel everything all the time. And I've got to learn how to control that and channel that. Because if I don't, there's a good chance I will put something in my body that doesn't need to be there to change my state.
Yep.
Hopefully I wrapped that up with answered your question.
Oh yeah, no, totally. And also I want to try sensory deprivation tank so badly. So
I can't wait.
Oh my gosh. Yes. How about you, Ariel?
I just thought that my depression was the most precious part of me. I didn't know who to be without it. And I wasn't even diagnosed because my family wouldn't ever have taken me to wherever you get diagnosed. It just wouldn't have happened. And so I was just suffering in my own, wondering if I'm making it up, if I'm being dramatic, blah, blah, blah. So I just, as I started to want to get better, I had that desire, okay, this sucks. I don't want to live my life this way. I don't want to be suicidal or self-harming. I had this moment, I was probably 17 and I was like, oh my God, I can't be like a mother in her 30s going to the bathroom to break out her blade to deal with her problems. I don't even have kids, but that was my vision of the future for myself. I was like, that's not going to work. I'm not going to be a functioning human. So I had this shift. I was like, okay, I want to get well. That's a new desire in me. But then I was really scared, how do I write music? How do I write deep, brooding, good music? Because that's all I care about. I don't want to write happy, positive music. That doesn't resonate with me. And so I've really learned that life will always give us pain. So you can always authentically write and create from pain if you want to. You can access it anytime. There's plenty of it, whether you are knee deep in your depression and accepting it and staying there, or if you're trying to get better. And also realizing that it's not like you're here or here. You're not recovered or sick. I feel like I'm like this all the time, and I've learned not to freak out. So if I'm on this great roll and then the next day I wake up and I'm like, oh shit, it's back. I'm in a really dark place. I don't have to make that mean that this is my next 6 months. I can try again tomorrow, and maybe that it's going to be different for all of us, I guess is what I'm saying. You don't have to look at someone else's clinical depression journey and make it mean something about your own mental health issue, because we don't have language for this stuff. We're all experiencing it and hoping that what you're saying, what I'm saying is the same thing, but we don't know yet. And so that's why conversation is so powerful.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And that whole thing about having depression be like the most interesting thing about you. And if you heal, then like your art won't be as interesting. That is something that I feel like so many people can resonate with, especially when, you know, you hear about musicians that were so quote interesting and successful, but you know, it was because of the drugs and the alcohol. And there's like, I have a lot of musician friends that I met in treatment that were so scared, like my music's not going to be good. It's not going to be edgy. And there's some of the most like foul-mouthed, edgy people I know, and they're clean and sober. It's so funny. So that is such a great just musing in terms of, you know, being at peace with, you know, you're gonna find a way to suffer to put it lightly.
Yeah.
I know it's not exactly the most, you know, optimistic standpoint, but it's true. So my final question, and you know, this can be as open-ended for you, all of you, as much as it can be. One observation from the pandemic has been its effect on our mental health. And to go a step further, a lot of people realize that they might not be using substances, whether that's drugs, alcohol, the way that they are comfortable with, especially when you take away the whole social aspect. So if a loved one is questioning the relationship with alcohol or drugs, or they realize that the pandemic has really pointed out spots in their mental health that they want to work on, what is the first thing you would say to them, or what piece of advice would you offer? Dr. Ho, would you like to go?
Sure. I wouldn't offer them advice. I would listen, because I need to first understand what they're experiencing. Even if I think I understand what they're experiencing, I don't, because I'm not them. So that first thing would just be about, I'm here for you, let's talk, and just finding out what they're feeling, thinking, experiencing, and what they want. Because I might think they want to be absolutely 100% alcohol and drug free, if we're talking about alcohol and drugs. Maybe they don't, or they are dealing with depression, but I think it's something we need to talk. It's all about that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And actually, like, you inspired me to reframe it. So if someone came to you about, you know, drugs, alcohol, mental health, how can I word this better? What if you were, you know, kind of at your day one or your start, where would you go, or what would you do? I guess is a better way to put it. Michelle.
Yeah, you know, I think I'll do with the substance answer too, I guess. So for me, it's, you know, I think in this generation, especially, I am an alcoholic. I am very grateful, proud alcoholic. Never thought I'd say that out loud, but that's how I feel. And, you know, I think that there's this generation of normie, and then all the spectrum, blackout, drunk, you need intervention ASAP, and it's Alcoholics Anonymous. And there is like this 50 shades of gray, right? And there's so many people having these safe conversations out loud that it's not all people are alcoholics because they don't want to be, they're non-drinkers now. And so I think there's a shift in culture where it's like, we can start having these conversations about problematic drinking way before it has to become a problem. Or religious reasons, dietary reasons, smart people that know that this is the same thing we're putting in our gas tank that we're ingesting in our body, right? And so for me, it's like, you know, let's just take a look at your relationship with alcohol and maybe test drive sobriety. Give yourself permission and a break. Put some distance between you and your thing, your drug, that bottle for me, and see if you can keep your own promises. See if you can, how you feel, but allow yourself to make a really good, educated decision once it's actually out of your body. Because we kind of get in this perpetual cycle of relapse because we never get to experience the good part, because we're always, you know, like detoxing, and then we get through it and then we're like, oh wait, I'm being triggered, I want to go back. So our starts are constantly with the hard part. So I think just giving yourself permission to lean in and get curious about what is your relationship with alcohol. And like she said before, it's like, you know, direct them to support. You know, how can I help you? And asking them what they need and giving them the appropriate resources for, you know, support groups and a clinician to be able to start leaning in and asking more of those questions. But I love that the shift is happening with having these conversations way earlier on than we used to.
Absolutely. And I think it also is really important to note that a lot of people are starting to make the connection between substance use and mental health, because I think a lot of people have that thing of, especially with the pandemic and obviously before that, where they would think, okay, I'm drinking to cope, but why do I feel even worse? And, when we step outside, it seems so obvious at times, but like I'm sure a lot of you on this panel can attest to, when you're in that cycle, it feels just mind-boggling as to why you feel this way. And like, yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And in terms of having those, open and safe conversations, brave conversations, it is so amazing to see that that's just able to happen, and able to happen virtually, whether you live in the middle of nowhere and no one, you feel like no one can relate. You're able to go online and see these people that you think, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one. So thank you for that, Michelle. How about you, Amanda?
Yeah, I agree with everything everyone said. I think the only thing I would add is, if you're sober, sometimes sharing your own story, your own experience can really be powerful and helpful in destigmatizing it and normalizing it. And beyond, also, like, of course, helping them if they want a therapist or professional help or things like that. Also, if there's like some books that you've loved that I've read, like some like Quit Lit stuff or podcasts or things like that, I think it can be really powerful for people to hear stories of people that are like them.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that sometimes people feel intimidated to give advice or to help out, because they think, oh my gosh, well, I don't want to give them a piece of advice or direct them somewhere and then they fall off. And then what if it's my fault? Like sometimes, just being able to say, well, this is what I did, or this is my story. Like that can be, you don't have to be an expert on the topic. You don't have to be the queen or king or whatever of recovery in order to make a difference. And I think a lot of people, it's just sometimes just the simple act of telling a story, or just saying that, hey, I'm going through the same thing. Like you don't even have to have an answer, just saying, me too, can be very comforting. So thank you. And Ariel and Shawn, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Excuse me. Agree with that. Like what everybody said. I think the way I deal if somebody does come to me, when they do come to me, I always try to find something that I can relate to them. So I usually deal a lot with humor. I always, when I'm in intense situations and things like that, I'm kind of funny. I'm like the dad in the room, but I'm also the little boy. So just the other day, for example, a guy, said, I think I have a problem. I was like, let me ask you a question. When was the last time you just opened a bag of chips and just ate a few? And he was like, oh, I never do that. I eat the whole bag. And I'm like, so do I. I was like, when was the last time you opened a beer? And he's like, oh, I drink the whole thing. And I'm like, yeah, that's, and then I just dive in with that. And I can really read the room when I'm talking to another alcoholic or addict. And most of the time at shows, I'll go like this to her and I'm like, Coke, they're on meth, they're on this. Cause I know, because I have that intuition, because I've been around it, but that intuition has really helped me be able to navigate those conversations. And I can relate because I've done all those things. And I find humor and try to open that up and just tell them my story, pour into them their life. And if I do pull that shell down a little bit, and sometimes the shell is just like, they're just there to tell me everything. But I do it in my own story right away. Absolutely every time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like what we've all been talking about, it's all about like showing up. We don't have to be experts and perfect at this. We're all going to suck at it and do horrible jobs at representing our cause. And that's part of the awesomeness of it, is continually showing up anyway. And it's so cool how often the phone and social media has come up today as a good thing, because usually it's, something that we all are hating on, and it's like comparison culture, and we're like, this is the worst. So how wonderful that some stuff has been shifting. For me, it all comes down to like desire. If somebody comes and they say that they want a new beginning, or like my experience of feeling like I want to get well, and that kind of like light bulb moment, it's like the crack, it's like just the beginning of it, that's pivotal. If you want it, then you're going to stick with it and create it in your life. But so many times we approach it from doing it because of someone else's expectation of us, or because what we think that they want from us. So I always find my most power in my life, and I think anyone else can identify their power through recognizing I'm doing this for me because it's something that I want. And even asking yourself, if I was living my life and showing up and feeling the way I wanted to, what would that look like? What kind of thoughts would I have? What kind of feelings would that be? And see if you can access your future self. Well, remembering your future self is, and not future tripping, remembering your future self isn't perfect either. And they're going to have a ton of struggles also, but can that be a doorway to get some new thoughts in your mind if you've been kind of, you know, repetitively obsessing over stuff that's been keeping you stuck?
Thank you. And yeah, that whole thing about desire, just like being the catalyst towards things, that's a very great point. So thank you. Alex, how are we doing with audience questions and things like that?
So we have quite a few comments and questions. One comment comes from Kevin, who says that Ariel and Shawn saved his life with their music. And he also asks for everybody on the panel, what was the hardest part of quitting for you?
Is that, anybody?
Yeah. So this is just grab bag. Anyone can answer at any time.
For me, it was just like accepting life on life's terms. Like,
Mhm.
I didn't know why. I didn't know why I couldn't drink, you know, and just coming to the realization that, you know, I have a lot of acceptance to do in my life. Was the hardest thing, and just the lack of bravery I had.
Mhm.
Like, I was so scared. I was like a scared little kid, like a scared little boy, like this little fragile Shawn that I was just trying to comfort with alcohol. So I don't know if that's a good answer, but that was my experience. I was just so scared. So yeah.
I know for me, it was the fear, like everybody says, is, you know, I'm not going to have fun. And, you know, birds of a feather flock together. And so all of my friends became, the substance was that kept us together was alcohol. That was like the glue to our relationships. And so everything I did, from camping to boating to hiking to ATV to concerts, it was all, I believed it was the substance that made it fun. And I had to, again, challenge that and say, Michelle, you spent all your time in the beer garden, then you tripped down the stairs and made a fool of yourself, right? You don't remember anything. Now I have the memories of these concerts. Like, I don't have to look back through Facebook memories. And that's the really cool piece, is that it's really not that made it fun. You just give that credit to the bottle, at least in my personal like life. That's how it was. And I'm skydiving, I'm jumping out of planes, I'm swimming with dolphins. Like, I'm doing things, I'm not living from the sidelines of my own life anymore. And it's pretty freaking rad. So that would be how I'm feeling about, you know, what was holding me back and what I was afraid of. And it was so far from the truth.
And just to piggyback off of that, we have a comment from Corey who mirrors your sentiment, saying, recovery has been so fun. That was a fear of mine in the beginning, not having fun. And I think we can all vouch that it's a very real fear that we have. But then once you come out on the other side, it's like, you don't even think about it anymore. Like, you find fun and joy in just the simple things in life. Amanda, did you have anything to add on how you quit?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with everything everyone said. I think also for me, a really big hard component of it was just like dealing with my emotions, just like learn it. Like, I didn't know how to regulate my emotions. I didn't know how to communicate with people. I didn't know how to tell people when I was frustrated with someone. I didn't know how to like have a disagreement with someone in a productive way. I was such a people pleaser during, like, you know, my substance use, because I could just drink to deal with not liking something. And when I stopped, I had to like really be honest with myself and with other people. And it was a really difficult process. But the cool thing I feel like with sobriety and even with fun and everything we're saying is, when you get to the other side, you're not just where everyone else is. It's like you have a strength beyond that. Like, I have better communication skills and better emotional regulation skills, and I'm probably better able to have fun and know what's fun for me because I don't drink.
Mm-hmm. Now, I actually have a specific question for you, Amanda. This comes from Colleen, who said, I heard you say you specialize in eating disorders. I'm struggling with this and would love to talk with you more. number one, do you have a tip that you could give Colleen? And number two, how could she find you to get in touch with you after this panel?
Yeah, I feel like trying to give one tip is
know.
hard. I think there's like, what I can say is I think there's so much overlap that especially in women between eating disorders and substance use. And it can be really difficult because a lot of places don't talk about the intersection of both. So, I mean, my tip, I think, is to start with I wouldn't try to stop doing both at the same time. My recommendation is to like focus on what is more severe, or like in the recovery world, we kind of say like, what's going to kill you first. Like focus on, if your drinking is more severe than your eating disorder, I would try to focus on that first, because doing everything at once is really overwhelming. And to connect with me or to find out more about my work, I have a group practice. She can go to therapyforwomencenter.com, or she can connect with me on Instagram at Therapy for Women.
Great. And then we have from Martin, who is here on our Zoom. He said, people often talk about having to hit rock bottom before people will seek treatment for alcoholism. Would you say that happened in your lives, or what did that look like? And then piggybacking off of that, we also have Browning, who was wondering like if there was a defining factor that made you realize that you needed to quit. So let's start with Shawn.
Yeah, I am like an escape artist. I will find a trap door, and I'll go even farther. So I've seen people hit their rock bottom, and rock bottom for me was this. My team had a intervention, and I went because I was falling out of the tour bus and coming back. We were on tour, and I was coming back with cuts all over me, and I was like, I don't know what happened. So that was pretty scary because I was blacking out. I didn't remember that. What was the other what was the Browning question?
So the Browning question was if there was a defining factor or a moment that made you realize that you needed to quit.
Yeah, I feel like all the above. Why don't you speak into this?
We had an intervention. So I don't know what would have happened if we hadn't. And even on the way there, he went, but he wasn't super open to the idea. He called me that night and said, this place is awful. The beds are gross. I don't know why you sent me here. This is too severe. I can just do like outpatient.
I was sick.
And so he was complaining to me, and I was rolling my eyes. And then like 3 days later, you could hear a difference in his voice, and he was soft. His surrender moment had happened. So it happened at treatment.
It happened so much. I was only supposed to be over 30 days, and I ended up calling her, and I'm going, I'm staying for 60.
And Music Cares paid for this treatment. Thank God, which was such a blessing.
Yeah.
Ariel, could you tell us more about Music Cares for anybody who might be struggling?
Yeah, so they're an organization that specializes in giving support and resources to the musical community through things like health insurance. They give therapy, paying for treatment. So a lot of our musical community during COVID has relied on the generosity of Music Cares, and they've saved us a number of times, and we're really grateful.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I just like to add one thing. It's like it's weird because growing up in my 20s, I looked up to some bands, right? And I was like, that's what I want to do. I'm friends with a lot of those guys now, and they're all sober. And one of them is in probably one of the biggest bands in the world, and he's my sponsor. So it's really strange how it all kind of comes full circle. And it's still mind blowing to me that looking up to these guys growing up, and now they're sober, and it's pretty awesome actually.
It's interesting, right? Because when you don't know what's going on the inside. Right. I mean, that's a perfect example because we make all of these assumptions.
Yeah.
And they're not correct. We don't know.
Exactly.
And then before I get Michelle and Amanda's comments on this, Ariel, what was it like for you to realize I really need to get my partner help? And what kind of support system did you have around you when you decided to make that move and to present that to your partner in an open and honest way?
I mean, it was terrifying, and we were on a huge, really grueling 40-date tour.
Yeah, and they deliver alcohol to your bus at 10 a.m. in the morning.
You know, and
Wow.
I was quite naive. I didn't know the symptoms of addiction. I didn't have alcoholism in my face. And so when he would lie to me and tell me everything was fine, I would believe him naively. And then as the tour went on and it got worse and worse, I started to freak out and realize, and the other people in my team on the road with me were coming to me and saying, hey, I saw him do this. He said this, he took this substance. And I'm just like, oh my God. So I just kind of had to be in professional mode and finish out the tour. And our manager flew in from California. My parents came down and we all got in a room and that they did the intervention with me and some of our bandmates. And so the support system was my mom and dad and our manager and our bandmate, I guess. But I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know this world at all, you know, and I've since found out about the Al-Anon community, and there are a lot of resources available, but it was like one of the worst times in my life. It was so scary. I thought I was losing my partner, my band, like it was all going down the drain. All my eggs are in Shawn's basket. So if he's screwed, I'm screwed, you know. It was dark.
Yeah, your TED Talk on all of that, I found it to just be incredibly powerful and moving. We have a clip of that up on our TikTok account, which has been fun to get involved in. But I think it's so great that you guys have been so open and honest about sharing your story, not only about addiction, but also about your mental health struggles and just how strong that has made your community.
Thank you.
Yeah, vulnerability is our like bread and butter. Yeah.
That's how we stay sane.
Yeah.
So thank you for creating this platform for us to be vulnerable tonight.
Yeah, of course. So Michelle, on our previous panel, you had talked about your rock bottom. Do you want to just briefly recap on that and maybe give Martin some advice?
Yeah, you know, I go back and forth. I really don't know if I believe that there is such a thing as rock bottom. I feel that every time I had a bottom, it got deeper and my expectations changed and it just kept progressing. And so, you know, I'd like to say that my rock bottom was my first hospitalization, my second one, my third one, and then my fourth one. And, you know, then I'd like to say it was after inpatient treatment. And, you know, everything that I kept thinking I would never do, I did. And then I was like, I'd set my limits over and over again. And I think that the beauty in the conversations that we're having now is that we don't have to wait for somebody to hit anything. We can declare, this is as far as I'm willing to go with my relationship with alcohol, and this is no longer adding value to my life. This is beyond hangovers and calling in sick. This is destruction beyond my wildest dreams. And so, you know, the day that I woke up, I think our minds are the most powerful things we own. And if we think we can or we think we can't, we're right. And I woke up one day and there was none of that drama. I woke up on a day, the day before Thanksgiving in 2016, and I got off the hamster wheel. I said, I'm not playing this teeter-totter game. Am I going to drink today or am I not going to drink and be on autopilot at the liquor store by 5 o'clock? And I was like, it's a non-negotiable. There's a line in the sand. No matter what happens today, it does not require a drink. And I'm going to learn to sit in this distress and know that it's going to pass, like Amanda was talking about. And no matter what happens, I am no longer a person that can drink. And once I made that decision that I will focus my energy on being uncomfortable, knowing I can't drink, it freed up so much space to do other things and to really get a hold of my recovery and empower that part of my life and be excited about it. So I say rock bottom, it can be whatever we want that to look like.
I think that's a really great testimony, and I love everything that you just said. Personally, for me, in terms of my mental health rock bottom and knowing that I was at the point where, like, you know, maybe you should address this, maybe you should see a therapist, was just seeing my younger brother in his journey and his outcries of like, something's wrong, like I need to get help. I never thought that like I was depressed. I never thought that I had an anxiety disorder. I just thought everybody went through the day feeling kind of down and like there's just this pit of despair and nothingness. And it really took him opening up, vocalizing, for me to then immerse myself into that world, to learn the vocabulary, to educate myself on it, to get the help that I needed. And I'm forever thankful and grateful for that. And it ultimately has given me the ability to work with Soberocity and to speak about topics of addiction and mental health. And it was the huge inspiration behind putting together this panel, because it's so important that we address these things and that we give people the opportunity to either anonymously or to give their name and to ask the questions that they're wondering. In our last panel, we had somebody who actively was struggling and who was slowly coming to terms with the fact that, like, oh my God, like, I think I'm addicted, but like, I low-key want to ask questions anonymously just to like make sure and just to see. So thank you so much for everybody's vulnerability and honesty on this. And Amanda, if you would like to speak about your rock bottom, that would be great. And then I will have one final question for Dr. Ho and also for you, Amanda.
Yeah, I also agree that I think rock bottom is whatever you say your rock bottom is. My last day drinking could have not been my last day drinking. I mean, it was like a new low for me at the time, but I had done other things that continued to make it low. And I feel very strongly that it wasn't that unordinary of a day for me. I woke up and I was a yoga teacher at the time, and I taught yoga completely drunk, and I didn't remember teaching yoga. And that was like a huge, wake up call for me. But the bigger point, I could have justified that. And I think we can justify almost anything if we want to. And instead, what I did was I thought about what this would continue to do and what my future would look like in a month from now, or a couple months, or what that new low would allow me to then do next. And I think you can also think about rock bottoms as I had rock bottom, like I had a bottom like a few years before I quit drinking. And I like hold on to that as a memory of just like the example of how powerless and how out of control my life was. So I think it's something that sometimes people want as like I really wanted a sign and like a divine intervention kind of thing. And really it's like the meaning we create. And if you get sober, you can decide what your rock bottom is and when. But there are plenty of moments where you can decide what your rock bottom is. So I wouldn't wait for it to happen, because you can say at any time that this is your rock bottom.
So we have, as our final question of the night, it's from an anonymous attendee who asks, how did you stop drinking? I cannot seem to stop, even though drinking does not help me reach my goals. Yet I still continue to drink the entire bottle. I feel bad about it. Dr. Ho, do you have any advice or anything that you could offer them?
Yeah, there's a few different things that come to mind, but I think one that I'd like to bring up is called the habit loop. What we're doing that's preceding it, because right now the payoff is the drink. It's not a payoff that might be serving somebody, but that is the payoff. So what's coming before that? What are the activities around that? And it could be useful to look at that. It usually is useful to look at that as well when we're deciding to leave alcohol or any addiction behind. If we change that activity, that can help. A good example is, if you pass a bar on the way home and it always calls your name, maybe you can find a different way to go home. That's very much a simplification, but I do think it kind of gives a clear idea of what I'm speaking of. So I think really looking at those habits can be very helpful.
Mm-hmm. And Amanda.
Yeah, I also think starting really, really small, like saying, I'm not going to drink today, and getting rid of all the alcohol in your house, telling someone in your life, and trying to, like, I think getting support and doing some of those behavioral things and having at least one person know can be really, really helpful. And if you make it through one day, then maybe try to make it like, then set the goal of 2 days or 5 days or 7 days and do it really slowly. Like they say, 1 day at a time for a reason, because setting a smaller goal and keeping your word to yourself is going to be so much better for your relationship with yourself than constantly doing this back and forth of, I'm going to drink, I'm not going to drink, 30 days, you know, I don't make it. You need to start to rebuild your trust with yourself. And that happens with slow, small goals that add up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anonymous, I hope that helped to answer your question. If you have any questions, feel free to DM us at Soberocity privately, or feel free to reach out to Dr. Ho and Amanda on Instagram. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to answer your questions. And I hope just overall tonight, hearing the testimonies from our panelists and from our host has helped you. And I encourage you to seek out help. And if there's anything that we here at Soberocity can do, please feel free to reach out. Our last comment for tonight comes from Constantine, which says that I love that Ariel and Shawn used key phrases from their songs when speaking tonight. It makes me think these things impacted them and they thought it could impact others. One example, in quotes, get well.
That's sweet. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Constantine, for that comment. And just thank you so much to everybody for tuning in tonight. Be sure to follow Soberocity for updates on more panels like these, and consider subscribing to our Patreon at patreon.com/Soberocity to support the programming of events such as these. Our next panel will be hosted on Friday, June 18th at 7 p.m. EST, and is our panel in honor of Pride, properly called Sober Pride. This panel will be featuring Fox's The Four contestant Brennan Belines and acclaimed queer non-binary trans writer Claire Rudy Foster, as well as Ariel Clark, Allie K. Campbell, Emilio Alexander Mendoza, and hosts of the Sober Gay podcast, Dylan Gay and Aubrey Lee. For tickets, go to soberocity.ticketbud.com/soberpride. Access to all of our virtual events are free, but we also have a gentle $5 recommendation just to help supporting more panels like these. Thank you so much to Rachel for hosting. You did an amazing and incredible job. Thank you again for Michelle. We love having you. Thank you, Dr. Ho, Amanda, Ariel, and Shawn. Please feel free to use this time right now to tell people where they can find you. I'm sure some people from the Soberocity team are like, what is this like music we keep hearing about? So Rachel, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I'm primarily on Instagram and TikTok. I'll never not say that with a straight face. You can find me at Shots to Shakes. It's just one phrase. And yeah, I do just a lot of recovery writing, musings, so all that good stuff.
And Dr. Ho, how can we find you?
Yeah, so Instagram at Ask Dr. Ho, my website, askdrho.com. Pretty much it's Ask Dr. Ho everywhere. And literally you can ask me anything, and you can also just call me Elise. We don't need to be fancy. And I should have said that right in the beginning. So they just hit me up. I'm happy to talk.
Ooh, cool. And Michelle?
You can find me Recovery is the New Black. And I have a private Facebook group for women if they're sober curious or in recovery, safe place for women to have conversations. I do private coaching, and I'm a host over at the Sober Mom Squad, which is a community that we created during the pandemic when we saw the increase in drinking. I have written a book, so stay tuned for that.
Ooh.
Lots of fun things in the works.
Great. And Amanda?
You can find me on Instagram or TikTok also at Therapy for Women. If you want to learn more about my practice, it's therapyforwomencenter.com or on Instagram at Therapy for Women Center. We're based in Philadelphia, but We have licensed therapists across the country, and we do virtual therapy as well.
And then Ariel and Shawn.
We're also on Instagram when you're checking everyone else's profiles out.
I don't think we're on TikTok, right?
We so are on TikTok.
Oh.
Get with the times. But a good place to
I'm
listen
not
to our
even
music is Spotify, or we've got a lot of music videos over on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to say that it was an honor to be with all you great women out there doing so many great things. So much knowledge here that I got from my own recovery from what you guys were saying tonight. So thank you guys so much for inviting us and letting me be a part of it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Again, thank you so much to everybody. Without y'all, this event would not have been possible at all. I'm going to say goodnight to everybody over on Facebook and those tuning in through the impromptu TikTok live that I did on my phone. I'm sorry that the audio quality was not amazing, but we're working on it. All right. Good night. And hopefully we can all get together again soon.